Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the Big Idea Podcast. My name is Eric Bramlett, and just a few minutes ago, maybe 5 minutes ago, I wrapped up a really awesome recording that took place via Skype because a lot of us are going out of town, myself primarily, for a little bit of vacation time, and so I was trying to do an online podcast with Tammy Melchien, um, which seemed to be successful as it related to my computer, only to find that something went wrong, something crashed, and I did think to myself, well, maybe I need to call Tammy back and try to record the whole thing over again. But then, you know what, I decided not to do that. And so that's why I'm here recording without trying to Skype or do anything with internets or extra taxing on my computer, because that just did not work. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to very briefly, because I just had this conversation, try to throw at you some key principles for the Thy Kingdom Come series, because we have a very large document. If you'd like to read for brainstorming, please, you have everything you might possibly need to take in as it relates to this series, Thy Kingdom Come. But let me just give you just my recollection from our interview. And again, my apologies to Tammy for not being able to be successful in our attempts to capture her voice speaking her mind about this topic. But I would say, if you have clarification questions about any of the stuff that I have paraphrased, please don't hesitate to reach out to Tammy via email. I'm sure that she would be interested in getting back to you and touching base on some of your questions. All right, here we go. Real quick, Thy Kingdom Come. I would say that this kind of fits the bucket of being a restore series. This series is all about what it looks like to bring this kingdom of heaven on earth as it is in heaven, right? And while that does lift itself from the Lord's Prayer, we aren't going to spend so much time in this overall series talking about the Lord's Prayer or really diving into that. We're actually going to save that for the Ready, Set series that immediately follows this one. But we definitely are drawing from that line, Thy Kingdom Come, and really asking ourselves, okay, well, Jesus, when he was here on earth, that was kind of this moment where heaven was on earth, right, where this took place. So we're going to look to Jesus as our example. What are the things that he did to bring this kingdom come? What did he do to bring this kingdom of heaven here on earth? And there are four things. Of course, he did lots of things. But there are four things we're going to be focusing on during this series. The first is teaching. He taught. And one of his primary teaching devices that follows that Lord's Prayer is the Blessed Ours. And really, what we're focusing on in this first week, as we're talking about teaching, is the idea that if we're really going to understand what Jesus taught about being blessed, are we prepared to be a blessing to others the way in which Jesus taught about it? The world teaches us that being blessed happens for all sorts of other reasons, and what Jesus taught about being blessed and what it means to be a blessing. And in the vernacular of this Big Idea map, we're talking about, being ready to be used by God. We've been blessed. We're going to be ready to be used by God to help restore his world. So it's a little bit overarching, a little bit different than exclusively the BLESS that may come up. We'll have to see how it plays out in the teaching team meetings. But really, it's something that's a little bit more of an overview of really teaching this principle, that if we're going to restore this world, if we're going to bring the kingdom of heaven on earth, we need to understand that we've been blessed to be a blessing, and we need to be ready to be used by God. And that's a big deal. Week 2 is called Healed. Jesus healed a lot of people. In my conversation with Tammy, she encouraged us to all develop the supernatural power of healing for this series. If you could do that for week 2 of this series, that would be fantastic. If not, however, we are talking about something a little bit different. Although Jesus did heal, and that was a huge part of what it looked like. What is our part in that process. And really kind of the big question we're asking, and kind of comes in a response to suffering. Healing is required because there is pain or there is suffering. When it comes to that healing that we're asking God to do, the question is, where is God working in this, and how can I help? Okay, we're going to spend more time trying to figure out what it means to be active in the pursuit of healing than kind of questioning why. Why did this person suffer? Which was the question that the disciples were asking about this blind man. And that's going to be one of the scripture references in Matthew, I believe it's 9. No, John 9. John 9, where Jesus is being asked by his disciples, what's the deal with this guy? Why was he born blind? Etc. Jesus responds by saying, you know what, you're asking the wrong question. And talks about being the light of the world, and that we actually need to be a part of that light. And that's exciting for us to be a part of what God's doing to heal the world. So that's week 2. Week 3 is forgive, my personal favorite, forgiveness. I'm a huge fan of forgiving and being forgiven. And this week, really kind of the idea is that that's one of the main things Jesus did, both in a relational standpoint, as he was really bringing healing and forgiveness to people who others were saying did not deserve that kind of forgiveness. We'll be focusing on the story of Jesus with the woman who was caught in adultery. Where was the guy? No one knows. But she was caught, and he said, whoever has sinned, who has not sinned, can cast the first stone. And really created an environment where somebody who, for the most part, in that society was not being offered anything close to forgiveness. He came to her level. He showed up and forgave, and it's pretty good stuff. So there's ramifications for that in our personal relationships, but there also might be ramifications for that societally or communally. When we think about our church, does our church do a good job of being able to offer that kind of healing, that kind of forgiveness to those who maybe society has said does not deserve such things? Have we earned a right to be heard by others through our patterns, or are we similarly not creating avenues of forgiveness and instead creating avenues of judgment or just kind of shutting down? So that's what we'll be looking to challenge ourselves with for week 3. And then week 4, feeding. We're feeding the 5,000. That's one of the things Jesus did to bring his kingdom to earth. And so after fasting a few months ago, we get to eat. And we get to bring whatever it is that we have. And that's really the big idea. This little boy brought these loaves and fishes to Jesus, and it was all that he had. And what Jesus was able to do was take whatever he had, and he was able to feed the multitudes. And that'll be the challenge for that day. Are we prepared to offer up whatever we have, our time, our talents, our treasures? Are we able to surrender? Are we able to offer that at the feet of Jesus? And when we do, he's going to do something miraculous with it. Do we believe that? Will we believe it enough to actually do it? And will we stick around to see the fruits of that? As far as takeaways for that week, it'll probably vary between the campuses. We're trying to figure out, is there something centrally that we should be thinking about in terms of a takeaway, an action item? Lots of the examples that show up in the Big Idea map literally do have to do with feeding the hungry. And so that's a very good thing for us to think about in terms of a takeaway. And then I would say overall for the whole series, I know Kirsten and Community 412 and teams like that at your campuses have been really thinking and praying about this series, and they're very excited about the opportunities that are going to be able to present themselves. So when we talk about takeaways for the whole series, there's lots of opportunity there that we need to take advantage of and really use this big idea to be able to put front and center opportunities for people to step into this kind of faithfulness and to see what it actually looks like to have thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And that's where we're headed, everybody. I know it's short and sweet, and again, I apologize about the technical difficulties, but we do have something for you to study, and hopefully that's helpful. And I just wish Tammy was here on the internet to be able to say, Eric, that's not what I said at all, and I can't believe you would say that. Um, but I guess I'll just have to wait until I come back from my short vacation. All right. Thanks, everybody. This has been the Thy Kingdom Come Big Idea podcast. For Tammy Melchien in her absence, I have been Eric Bramlett, and look forward to lots of great creativity for this big idea. So long, everybody.